see so much of it where it is, unfortunately. So I don't. It's hard for me to say because I also work in the sex industry as much as I wish it wasn't called the sex industry. I'm a nude model, so like some of my work is naked too. So trying to balance my like, hey, I'm at home naked for pleasure by myself, and then okay, I'm naked professionally trying to work. That's another little weird balance. And even though I am in the sex industry where I don't do porn though, but I go to a shoot and like I know people are objectizing my photos and just looking at all the content I create and doing things that I wouldn't necessarily be doing to them at home.
So is the content that you're creating actually sexual, or are people just interpreting it as sexual?
For me, it's not very sexual. Every once in a while, I'll do something that's a little more erotic, and like I have an erotic audiobook and different things that I do, but it's mostly interpreted sexually. And even as a younger child, when I was shooting photographs of people, I would accidentally shoot a fetish. Like I had one of my friends wear a mask. She wasn't even naked, but it got lots and lots of views online. I was like, why is this so famous? And it was because someone was fetishizing this content they were taking it in a sexual way, even though it was a completely clothed image of someone in a mask. And I was like, oh, wow, that's
What kind of mask was it?
just one of the ones that we all have to wear now.
A medical mask?
Just a normal little.
Oh, wow. I'm thinking like because it was being sexualized that it was like a latex mask or something.
No, just like one of those.
Just a medical mask.
Blue ones, but it was yellow. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know.
Lovely.
So I've been accidentally sexualized for like a really long time. So that's a kind of a point of contention with me in my art, trying to figure out like, well, I don't find this to be sexual, but I know a lot of my viewers find it to be sexual. So struggling back and forth.
Do you think if you had used a male model as opposed to a female model, it would have been sexualized still?
I don't know because I had a boyfriend that I photographed a lot for a long time, and they still sort of sexualized him too. But I don't know. I don't know if it was his body type because he was sort of feminine looking and really slim. So I don't know if it's that body type that people sexualize or just portraits.
Oh, are you saying he was sexualized because of the fact that it was feminine like?
Possibly. I don't know.
Oh, I'm thinking over here like, oh yeah, he's a guy, so females just sexualized him. Okay, I see.
think it can go both ways, but
yeah,
there's that unfortunate thing. But I personally am not too into sexualizing naked people, so
right.
that's where I'm at.
So, what do you think nudity does for you? Why do you enjoy it?
Well, when I first started using it for photography, I just used it because I couldn't figure out what outfit I should wear. It's like, what matches with this scene?
Simple enough. Just go naked.
Nothing. But it's enjoyable. Like, unless it's cold, and then I'm a summertime nudist for sure. So when it gets to be winter, I'm like, okay, let me have some socks and a house coat, and I will be in my house coat if you need me.
Right. What's the coldest it gets in Kentucky?
I mean, it does get down below zero, so I mean, it
Okay.
can get really cold, and we can have blizzards. But
Okay.
so from now and a few months before now until I think April, it's very winter there. But every
Okay.
once in a while, you get a nice day, and you can always sleep naked. So
I wish we could say that about Cleveland. It's like rare that it's like, oh yes, nice day. Every day is just like, and then to people who aren't living here, they're like, oh, it's so gloomy. And then us, we're like, this is a nice day. Like, what are you talking about? So you've had obviously the one issue with the person from high school dealing with nudity, but have you experienced any other type of relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic, where there's just been an issue with your nudity?
I think I mostly put it away when people come over. I feel like there's just been very few instances where people have been cool with it. And back when we were younger, some of us would hang out naked, but I mean, there was sort of this weird underlying sexual context. And most of my friends are married now, so we mostly wear clothes. But I did have an art model over Kira Grant, and it was really nice because she also was not upset about Brian being naked either. She's like, oh, well, we've all gotten naked already, and it's just, she's cool with it. So that was really nice to have someone at your house versus like, oh, these are my cousins, and we have to keep our clothes on because they're not nudists. So
Yeah. So do you identify as a nudist?
some of the times, yeah.
Okay. What does a nudist mean to you?
I think just being able to be free and happy with your body in the state that it is without clothes on.
Okay, yeah. See, there's a lot of people, for people who don't understand nudity, I would say probably the people who sexualize it more often, they tend to think that nudist is like hippies living in a village of tents, being naked, just going around hugging everybody.
I mean, that does sound like fun.
Right.
So sign me up.
But a lot of the people who come through are like, that's not me. Like, I live a normal life. I'm just naked sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time while I do that. But yeah, I agree with your view on what a nudist is. Like, it's just somebody who enjoys being naked.
And they're comfortable with other people being naked by them too.
Yeah, like it's not a sexualized activity
Right.
or look or outfit, I guess.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into modeling?
Oh, I got into photography first, and I didn't have models around, so I'd shoot myself.
Oh,
So
okay. What made you pick up photography then?
when I was 16.
What got you interested?
Oh, what got me interested? I probably my dad went to the Vietnam War, and I've looked at his slides, and they're just so well composed. Like I guess I was just sort of born into a photographer family,
Mm-hmm.
and he always just had a camera around, and I'd use some of our household cameras. I was always taking pictures of cats as a child. It's like if you need a picture of a cat, I've got you covered. But I don't know, when I got into high school, there were photography classes, so I took them and I photographed one of my friends. And the teacher was like, "Wow, you need to have an apprenticeship." So he hooked me up with a photography studio locally, and I worked there for 8 years.
Oh,
And
that's really cool.
yeah, so from 16 on, I was working at the studio.
So your dad was in Vietnam
Mhm.
and he had a camera with him and he was just taking photos while he was there.
Yeah,
That's crazy. I feel like those are really cool photos.
yeah,
Bad time, but really
yeah.
cool photos.
I had to laugh because he took one picture. It was a swimming pool. It was the camp they were living at, and he said, "War is hard and it sucks. Here's our swimming pool." I love this caption.
Did he label all of them?
No, not all of them, but he's has a big slide reel, so he'll put the projector on and we'll watch in a dark room. He'll go through them.
That's
But some
really
of
cool.
yeah,
What do you think? This is kind of off topic of nudity, but based off of his photos, what do you think the experience was like? Because I feel like the Vietnam War is like such a kind of in a way controversial war, just because that's like where a lot of things started uprising. We're like, oh, war is bad.
I wish they would have figured that out sooner. It's like, we should probably
like
stop
this is
doing
not
war.
okay. But like, what could you interpret from the photos that your dad took?
I know he had some really beautiful things that I saw through his pictures. So despite there being all of the horror of war, there was at least some beauty that he got to experience. Although I didn't know him before, of course, because
Mhm.
I'm younger.
You weren't born yet.
I wasn't born yet, but I think there was definitely something traumatic that happened that changed him into a different person, or just going through basic training somehow molded him in a way that he wasn't quite as loving and available as he may have been had there not been a war. So
Hmm.
I definitely see some. He doesn't identify as having PTSD, but I see some things that could be somewhat PTSD that are just like the way he acts, and he's a little
Right.
more rigid and
Yeah, it might be harder
things.
to identify PTSD when you're surrounded in an environment where everybody's going through the same thing, so it just seems normal.
Yeah,
Not saying that you or your mom went through that, but like back
yeah,
while he
everyone
was
else
in
with
war and
him. Yeah,
everything. But yeah, it might be harder to identify personally because everyone else is just like, no, yeah, it's normal.
this
We
is
all
what's
do that.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you worked at this apprenticeship, what
Mhm.
kind of photography were you doing?
Mostly portraiture, senior photography, and some weddings.
That's cool. You started that when you were 16?
Mhm.
How long did that go on?
About 8 years.
Okay. And what did you do afterwards? How did you get into the spot that you're at now?
I guess there was okay. I graduated college, and then they picked out from several people that applied to it a year-long fellowship where they gave you $10,000 and you had to fill a 2,000 square foot gallery in a year.
Oh,
And that was
wow.
a really amazing place. And then part of that was applying for grad school. So I applied for grad school, and I got into a couple grad schools, and it just was not what I expected, unfortunately. I was
Yeah.
hoping to find a lot of like minded people that want to collaborate on projects, and I found a lot of very diverse people that weren't necessarily interested in working together. And I'm not a great leader. So being like, I wanted to be the one that would collaborate, and put some people like, okay, I'll collaborate with you, but they wanted to be told what to do. And I'm not always the best at doing that. So I've been working on developing my leadership skills, but it's not quite there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So grad school happened. I dropped out of grad school. I'm like, this is not worth it, not worth trying to go into debt, all this jazz. And then, let's see, I was living in Cincinnati at that time. Our cars got broken into, and
Mm.
my partner was working in Georgetown, so we moved down to Georgetown. And I just was in a house in an isolated town. I knew no one. So I turned to the internet. I started YouTubing. And I'd already had a Patreon page established, but it wasn't very successful. And so I just put a lot more time, effort, and energy into that. And I already had a backlog of nude photos because I'd been doing this for a long time. So I started doing nude videos too. And someone sort of took me through a one on one how to do Patreon modeling
Oh,
type of thing. He just found me off the internet randomly and we connected. So we had a couple phone calls and he made some suggestions. He's like, make some workout videos, put them on
okay.
YouTube. So I
So
did,
yeah, what does the content look like for that? Is it just like everyday activities, like you said, working out?
yeah, either workouts, cooking. I do a lot of clothing haul try-ons. So I'll go to a thrift
Okay.
store and I'll either do it in a dressing room or I'll just buy a bunch of things from a thrift store, take them home, try them on, see what looks good or not.
Hmm.
And then people on I do the OnlyFans thing too. So that between OnlyFans and Patreon, people will consume the content, and I have to edit it for YouTube because YouTube doesn't like these things. They're so mad about it.
Yeah.
For a while, I was doing just like nude live streaming on YouTube where I'd do this much, but every once in a while there'd be a nip slip, and then the
Mm.
audience would freak out and be so happy, and then but
Oh.
my content would get taken down. I'm like, okay. Excuse me. So YouTube didn't identify as me being a nudist very well because I know sometimes they have a nude yoga channel on YouTube,
Oh, really?
but yeah, and somehow they get away with it.
Hmm. Yeah, I know you can do educational purposes on YouTube, and we've had our battles with YouTube as well.
I mean, you could always try another channel if you wanted to try it, but I can't say that
Yeah,
they'd like you or not.
right. And I know I've like searched random videos, and yes, they have an exception for educational purposes, but there's this one YouTube channel that I was looking at, and they do more entertainment videos. And so like it was just two dudes playing like I think it was some type of dare game or something. But it was a professional setting in the sense where it was like all white backdrop. Like that's all that really made it professional. All white backdrop in a studio. And one of the things was that they had to like get bare naked. And like their butts were showing completely. Front side didn't show, but they were still showing. And I was like, oh, that's not educational. But they're showing butt, but it's also guys showing butt. So I don't know, because I have never seen any females show like nudity on that channel specifically. So I was like, I don't know if this is male acceptance of nudity or.
I know one thing YouTube got very mad and deleted my video on my channel for was I had hand bras on my nipples and I was doing da 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 or making my boobs dance with one of my friends for the end of the video, and I was like, go to Patreon, go to OnlyFans, and they're like, this cannot happen because we were doing a nude yoga teaser video, so we started out clothed and we did our underwear, and then we're like, oh la 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 la, we're just messing around, and they don't like that.
Wow. Even though nothing was shown.
Yeah, and I did have one that had lingerie on, but it was too see-through. So I mean, there's just all these crazy YouTube rules. It's like basically stay very clothed and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I do have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, but they will not let me apply for the creator award, so they don't like my channel. I've been adult contentized, and I fought with Patreon for a really long time because I'm like, I'm not making adult content. I'm just naked. This is not necessarily,
Yeah.
excuse me, necessarily for adults. It's just content is like, oh, I'm being normally naked. Or I don't know if there's someone that already has this branded, but normalized naked is what I wanted to be. I was like, because I'm just trying to normalize nudity, but that didn't work at all.
Right.
That's not a good. So I'm hopeful that you guys get somewhere farther than I do. You have a better production team. It's just me by myself at home.
And
So.
we'll have our own website to upload
Yeah.
too. So nobody can tell us that we can't upload that.
Yes, as long as you can put it on your own website.
Yeah.
Good to host it.
Right. So can you explain for a second like what Patreon is?
Yes.
I understand the concept, but to me I've always assumed it was like I'm teaching you something, buy it on Patreon.
They have those, and there's just a whole spectrum of creators out there. So pretty much, I'll go through a couple little rundown scenarios. So I do all of these different things, and there's different umbrellas of them. So one of my Patreon pages is where I make art and I share like pre-releases of my meditations, and it's like, oh hey, you get to be the first one to see this music video. So people subscribe and pay a monthly fee, and they get exclusive content. And then the other one I have is it's a similar idea, but I do nude content. So I'm like, oh, you pay your monthly subscription and you get access to these nude videos. So there's just different things you can put behind a paywall. It's like, hey, if you want to donate, help support me. And so different people, depending on what you can appeal to, they'll either subscribe to be like, oh, I just want to help you. Here's some money. It's like, oh, yay, rewards. That's great. And then
Mhm.
other people will subscribe if they just were like, oh, I want to see these rewards. And then they're like, okay, I'll pay the money. I'll get in behind the paywall. So you can either, it's sort of a little bit different in a blanket thing. Like people do cooking videos on there and just all sorts of anything you can think of, they can give you exclusive access for.
Okay. And then can you monetize your content on YouTube?
I cannot. Nope.
Wow.
I was monetized for 1 month and I made $2,000 and I was so excited. And then they
Yeah.
shut me down for the rest of my life. So I've appealed and I'm trying to make even more safer work content, but they just don't like that I try to redirect people because I'm like, hey, I'm wearing clothes now. I'm wearing different clothes. If you want to see what happened in between, go to the other sites. And
Yeah.
they're like, nope.
That's crazy. Especially considering you have a decent amount of subscribers.
The internet hates me.
To an extent, I think the internet loves you, but
Oh yeah, the users
the
of the
government
internet
of the
like me.
the internet
Yeah.
does not like you.
The platform gods.
Yeah, the platform gods.
But I was really happy with Patreon because they sort of did like a change of things and they directly contacted me. They're like, hey, we need you to put this behind the paywall. We need you to change this image. So they were nice about it,
That's
whereas
good.
YouTube will just take your account down and be
Yeah,
like,
brutal.
sorry. Not sorry.
No. Yeah, no, 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 no. So, how often were you taking, I'm like jumping around.
They're
How
fine.
often were you taking these self portraits? Because I know you said you didn't have a model, so you started yourself. At what point, what age do you think you started taking these photos of yourself?
Probably at 16.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So I just mostly was doing portraiture or they'd paint my body or I just try different concepts and things at that age.
And were you doing nude photography at that point too?
Not too much. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know there's this whole legal battle of being naked
Right.
under 18. So
Yeah. Because then at that point, it's considered, despite the intent behind it or the consent behind it, it's still considered child pornography.
yeah, which I think it is such a shame. Like I am very against actual child pornography, but like just like children choosing to be free and the whole sexting thing. Like I'm like, oh
Oh,
man,
yeah.
that had happened when I was in school, we would have all been in so
Oh
much
my gosh,
trouble.
yeah. I remember having an assembly in school and we all had to gather in the auditorium and they're like, sexting is child pornography.
I'm like,
And everyone's like,
seriously?
I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely some issues to avoid with that. But, oh, I had a train of thought and then I lost it. Oh, yeah. Even with looking at people now, like the other day, I was looking at this person I met. They're 19.
Mhm.
I'm only 22, so it's like not that much of an age difference. And I was looking at their Instagram and they had like some somewhat scandalous photos. And I was like, oh no, this was posted when she was 18. I don't know how I feel. But like at the same time, I'm totally fine with nudity. It's just like the fact of their age. I was like, is this okay? Like these photos are great. But is it okay for me to be like, yes, these are great? Is it okay for the men to be like, yes, this is great?
I have just had this conversation with Brian the other day because we saw someone on the street and I'm like, oh, that person's attractive. And I'm like, oh my God, how old is this person?
Right.
Like, oh. So
Yeah.
there's this weird battle of like, and I'm not trying to hate on 14-year-olds, but like they just keep dressing people sexier and sexier, younger and younger. Like 7-year-olds have midriffs. And I know one of my friends is very like, it doesn't matter what you wear. People aren't supposed to sexualize you. And I'm like, but midriffs. Like, so I don't know. There's this weird battle of like when I dress myself, I dress mostly like a homeless person because I don't want to be sexualized on the street. But
Yeah.
should I have to dress like that in order to go out of my house? So I don't know. There's this just like weird back and forth fight between like trying to be independent, express yourself, but not letting other people like see it and sexualize it. I don't know. That's a whole big battle, and I do feel like I know they were talking about Instagram making more people suicidal because they see all these
What?
like beautiful, well, teenagers, young people especially, because they see all these people and it's like, wow, that person's 15. I should be looking like this in my bikini. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, at that age, you should just be hanging out, enjoying life, and wearing as
Yeah.
much clothing as possible. No, I don't know. That is a very difficult line to sort of
Yeah.
navigate. Well, being a teenager is hard. That's just
Hmm.
also.
So do you think there's like an age on nudity? to a point where like it's okay?
Well, I think anyone at any age can be naked, but the whole behind the lens photography, videography, I mean, everything is so documented in social media now. Like, I personally, if you were to have children on this program, I think that would be fine. But it also depends on the users and the consumers of the content
Yeah.
because even if you did have a child here, someone could be taking it and well, on my YouTube thing, I'd do this. I'd be a portrait talking head, and people would be at home masturbating to it. And I'm like,
Mm.
so you
Yeah.
just don't ever know where that line of the consumer is. So it's
Right.
and you can't control it either. So I don't know what your guys' rules are around 18 and what you plan on doing, but I know people that live happily in nudist colonies with children, and it's not sexualized because they're kids and they're just naked like everybody else.
Is it a legal thing where I don't know my laws right now, but is it a legal thing? Like do you have to be 18 to like consume nude content?
That's a whole, I don't know on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that until you just
Because I
mentioned
mean,
that.
you could be providing pornography with quotation marks to minors, which
Right. Is that
also seems
illegal?
illegal. I don't know.
I feel like I haven't heard a law on that. I just know it's illegal for children to make porn.
Yeah. And I hate that the word porn and nudity are just so synonymous and that I have to call my work sex work too. That's like, I don't feel like I do sex work at all. Like, I'm
Right.
just like, nah, I'm just a naked person chilling out, hanging out, interacting
Yeah.
with people. But I don't know. It's a weird double edged sword.
Right.
But I assume that most of the people that are consuming my content because I'm on OnlyFans, so it's like I get all these messages of like, "Look how hard you made me," and and I'm like, yeah, this. I mean, that feels a lot more like sex work than other things do.
Yeah, definitely. Because once again, like the platform for that one specifically somehow created itself to like all of a sudden be a nude platform, like sexual
Yeah.
platform. So yeah, I guess it.
Well, they allow more sexual content than Patreon does because Patreon, I don't know exactly where their line is, but it's like you can't be touching yourself or like simulating. And then OnlyFans is like you can do whatever you want to as long as there's not. And they have this giant list of things you can't do.
Really?
Oh yeah, like blood is illegal, like
Oh,
urine, and I mean some things that
what?
are a little bit like gross and stuff. But there's
Those are just random. Like I
yeah.
just didn't expect that.
Age play. I mean, like I asked them for their list and I put it on my blog because I was like, I
That's
am
funny.
very interested in the things we can't say on OnlyFans because it seems like a more free platform, but then you're like, but you can't do all this.
Yeah.
So
Why do you think you can't do those things?
I want to blame the credit card company because that's what OnlyFans cited. It's like we need everyone to quit making adult content and just be naked because they were gonna like I guess dumb it down to the level of where I do stuff mostly,
Hmm.
and there was this huge uproar. But then they blamed credit card processors. So
What does the credit cards have to do with it?
because they don't. Oh, there's this weird thing. Well, because with Patreon, they have to pay you out through a third party country or something. You have to
Mm.
process it overseas because American credit card companies strangely don't want anything to do with porn. But like you can use your credit card to buy it, but you just can't do it on Patreon. Or there's some weird backdoor things you have to work around with it. I don't understand it, but
Hmm. I don't
I'm
get it either.
I enjoy just using the sites because I don't have to worry about those things.
Right.
Just like follow their rules and you can get paid up that way.
Yeah. Before we dive deeper into a specific topic, I'm gonna have us take a little break for a
Sure.
second, do whatever we need to do, and then we'll hop back in. I think we'll get a little more into modeling when
Okay.
we come back. So stay tuned if you're watching at home.
Bye.
Welcome back to NTR Nudist Talk Radio on nudism.tv. If you're just now joining, my name is Marissa, and we are joined with Jenna today. And we talked a little about everything before we took a break, but now we're going to get into modeling specifically, and we'll try to stay on topic. So, just a recap or a refresher, or letting people know if they're just now joining. You said that you got into modeling because you needed a model for your photography, and you got into photography first. You were about 16 when it started. At what point did it kind of pick up and become a serious thing?
I think pretty immediately. I was in that photography class and I just really loved doing it. I wasn't getting paid, of course, because I'm just, high schooler doing my own thing before Instagram and all that fun stuff took over the world. But yeah, I was pretty serious about it very intensely for a long time. Modeling really took off for me in 2015. I had my first paid gig in 2014. One of my friends and I traveled over a couple hours to a town and we were paid. She did my makeup and we did the whole modeling thing. That one wasn't naked, but
Oh, okay.
then I went to New York, and well, right before I went to New York, there was a photographer that I knew that I had sort of talked to back and forth. And it was so strange the timing. So we shot, and then the next couple of days I went up to New York and I'd done nude shoots. Before that, I'd done unpaid nude shoots because my friends and I were just hanging out. We'd throw the camera around and say, "Oh, hey, take your clothes off, do this, that, and the other." Uh, but then up in New York, I think I did 5 bookings, and I was just absolutely astounded I could make money being naked. So I was pretty thrilled about that. And
Yeah.
I've used Model Mayhem, and I've traded with people a lot before I got started professionally, and been doing it on and off ever since. I wouldn't say I'm a full time model because I'm a full time internet model. I do that full time, but the traveling thing, especially with COVID, I mean that's just been crazy.
Right.
But I think 2 years before COVID, I was pretty much traveling 100 days out of the year, just going from different towns and doing modeling gigs.
100 days out of the year. Yeah, think about that. There's only 365.
About a third of those I was gone.
Yeah. And then outside of those 100 days of modeling, were you doing other things as well?
Yeah, I did still have jobs back at home, or I had some online jobs I could travel with too.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you've been internationally modeling.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
It was, I guess he found me on Model Mayhem, but I just received this email that seemed, I'll just say sketchy as hell. It's like, please come to Europe and model for me. And I'm like, so I respond to most all spam things with like, okay, here's my PayPal, give me $500 or whatever. And then it was there and I was like, oh no. So I sort of freaked out for the next 3 or 4 months. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so now I have to go to Europe and model. And I did only have one other booking with another photographer I found on Model Mayhem in Germany. So
Well,
I did
that's
a couple
fun.
of bookings while I was there.
I didn't realize Model Mayhem was international.
Yeah.
Because I know Rory
Mhm.
had said that they used Model Mayhem, and then they've done a lot of international modeling as well, but they also used, I think they called it Purple Port.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of that, but I'm not on that website.
Right, yeah. And I think they said that that was like the European version of Model
Okay.
Mayhem. So I just assumed that they had all gotten them through Purple Port.
Mhm.
But yeah, I didn't know Model Mayhem did international. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did you feel? What was the energy of the photos and session like compared to a normal American nude shoot? Was the European and Germany one nude?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So how did it differ from American nude shoots?
I think for me it was just a lot higher stakes because I'd never been paid a full day rate or flown across the country to go shoot for someone, so I was pretty scared. And sort of with you guys, I'll call it a high stakes shoot too. It's more of like, hey, we're doing a day, and there's a whole crew, and I'm like, this excites me now. But back then I was like, ah! So I was kind of freaked out. But I mean, he just shot for 15 minutes and then it was over. It was just a real quick, pretty standard
15 minutes.
15 minutes, yeah. You're going to fly me across the ocean and shoot me for 15 minutes and go on your way. So
That's crazy.
that was just a wild. I felt like a wild goose chase, but
Mm-hmm.
no, I also felt like I was going to be kidnapped the whole time. I was like,
Oh.
but I mean, no, he wasn't creepy. I just had that thing in my mind because my mom's always like,
Mhm.
Jenna, don't watch Taken. They're going to steal you. I'm like, you don't want to be stolen.
Right.
It's fine. And that's been, my mom's always been so concerned about me modeling. And so I take my partner with me and he's, I'm not necessarily a bodyguard, but he'll just sit there and be be
Yeah.
available if I need something. And so he's been there the last couple days of the school shoot. It's been really great to have him be able to sort of take care of me and I guess mom me and make sure I'm not too cold or too like I'm not out of food. It's like, oh hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. And so that's been really great to have someone to help me be my best self, ready to go.
Yeah, it's always good to have an extra person just for safety reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
if for some reason the photographer was to have negative intentions,
Right.
it's less likely they would do anything
Yeah.
with another person present.
Yeah.
Also, just to clarify, because there was a slight second where you mentioned that school shoot,
Yeah.
and in my mind, I was like, school shooting?
Oh, no, not a school shooting. Photographers taking pictures at an abandoned schoolhouse.
Yes.
No
Just
school
wanted to
shootings.
clarify that in case anyone else thought the same thing as me for a split second, even though I knew the context. I was like, wait, he was there for what?
He was there to make sure everyone was safe.
Because I was like, it makes sense in the context. Like, he's there to make sure you're doing okay, taking care of you, making sure everything's good. And I was like, wait a minute.
Making sure you're not getting killed.
Yeah. So, did you feel that nudity was interpreted differently while you were doing these international shoots? Or did it feel sexualized, or was it more of like an artistic shoot?
They were both more artistic, and it didn't. I just did two of them, and it's been so long ago. I think it was
Right.
2016. So I mean, I don't. There wasn't a lot of difference I can really think of, but it just maybe slightly less sexual. But I mean, not too much. I know that Europeans are a lot cooler with nudity. Although
Right.
I will say I've been on the quest for a nude beach, and I went to a European. It was a nude beach, and there were just like two people topless, so I didn't feel like.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, well, and some of the kids were running around, and I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm allowed to be naked because no one else is already naked.
Right.
I never want to impose my nudity upon people. That's sort of one of my personal like. I'm very comfortable being naked, but I'm not going to take my clothes off randomly unless I know it's okay.
Right. Have you ever been to a nude beach in America?
I did finally get to go, and I think it was 2019. It's like it took me that many years to get to a nude beach, so. But I was very happy and very freeing. Although I did meet a guy that was like a little bit creepy, and I'm like, come on, no, nude beach, not. So they're everywhere. But
What nude beach? Like, what state was nude beach in?
it was in Florida.
Okay, yeah, I was going to suggest Florida if you hadn't found one yet.
Yeah, I think it was down. Is it Cape Canaveral, sort of where they do the rocket launches, sort of near there?
Ooh, I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, you lost me as soon as you said rocket launch. I was like, oh, I don't know. But yeah, so did you feel? I know you said there was one person that was kind of creepy while you were at the nude beach. Do you feel like nude beaches are sexualized? Because I know normal beaches are pretty sexualized.
Yeah, that's.
But do you feel like it's the same energy when you go to a nude beach?
I feel like besides that one guy, it was pretty normal. Just like everyone was hanging out on the beach, being pretty chill, pretty hanging out. So, it was really nice to be naked with my partner because I can't. He'll sleep naked, but he doesn't identify as a nudist. I was like, why don't you come to this? He's like, no, I'll be here wearing clothes if you need me.
Right.
But he was naked on the beach, and I was like, this is really fun to get you to be together with us like that.
Yeah, that's good that you could share that moment, like a public nudity moment with
Yeah.
somebody that's special. So I know, like, at a normal beach, you'll see a lot of people, like, patrolling the beach in a way. Like, you'll either see guys or girls just, like, looking around with the intent of, like, who can I flirt with? Do you see that at the nude beach?
I've only gone once, and I didn't see it because I just sort of took a really long walk by myself. I just like struck out, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk. And he was sitting there reading his book, and we were with no one else.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really see it because everyone was sort of already in their interactive pods. But usually when I'm at a normal beach, people don't come up and hang out with me either. They're typically just leave us alone.
Yeah, it depends on like if you're usually if you're just like sitting on your towels or something at a beach, you're not usually approached. But if you're like playing a game, then in those cases,
okay.
you're usually approached.
I usually just play in the water. That's what I come for. I'm like, let me go hang out in the water.
Cleveland has a pretty decent sand volleyball scene. So at the beach, there's always people playing volleyball, whether it's at the actual nets or if the nets aren't up yet for the season, then there's people just like in a circle or something playing volleyball. So there's always a bunch of people at the beaches here that are like, hey guys, what's going on? And it's like, sure, they're saying they're going to come play with you for the game of like volleyball, but at the same time, it's like, you're not actually playing and I'm getting frustrated.
You're just here to be creepy.
Yeah, you're just here to flirt. And honestly, I think I'm older than you, so I'm not enjoying this.
I'm just here to look at you wearing a bikini.
Right. So, do you have any like favorite experiences that you've had while modeling? Like, was there a shoot that just stood out to you?
Let me think for just a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one that keeps popping back up is the one I just did 2 or 3 days ago. But well, I'll talk about that one first, and then
Yeah.
I'll circle back if anything else pops up. um, Ivy Lee is a really great photographer, model, event organizer, and she organized something at the abandoned schoolhouse in Shenandoah, Pennsylvania. And it was a 2-day event, and there were 9 models the first day, and wait, maybe 8 models. No, I think okay, yeah, 9. And then the next day there were 11 models, and I knew 2 of them on the second day, and then I stayed with a few of them the first day. And so by the time we were done, I was like, I know everyone. So that was really nice. And I did do that event in the summer because it was really cold. Like that was the difficult part. But in the summertime, I felt like I got to be a nudist because I was just running around naked because I was so hot and all the photographers were
Right.
so hot. But this time around, I was running around in my coveralls.
Yeah.
I was like, please let me wear a ball gown for at least part of the shoot. And it was probably my least favorite time to get naked. I did say that to a couple photographers because usually there's no hesitancy of like, okay, we're ready, go ahead and get naked. I'm like, sure. And then I'm like, do I have to? Can I just stay in my coveralls with my hand warmers?
Yeah.
So that was a really fun event. I just love modeling in groups of people. I think that's so neat. All the different shapes you can make with people. And so I had Brian grab my camera because I kind of played both sides of the fence. I'm like, okay, I got to be a photographer, but I also have to model. So
Yeah.
I had him shoot the groups for me, and then I did some music video creation. I've been editing that, so that's been really fun to look at.
Did you do the music video stuff while you're at the shoot?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So what type of music videos do you shoot?
I shoot them for myself because I'm also open for shooting them for other people, but I make my own songs and work with different producers and people because I am not a great songwriter. Since I was 14, I've always wanted to make a song, but I made that a reality starting last year by hiring people. I was like, there are people that have this figured out and they've done it before. That's not me yet.
Yeah.
So I'm working more on the songwriting scene, trying to figure that out. But then I take the songs, and I also do meditation pieces, and just make something because I absolutely love dancing, singing, and then post editing the music videos too. Those are my 3 strong suits, and it's like, but those are not quite a whole song.
Oh, yeah. So when you're filming the music video, like when you were at the abandoned school, were you just filming background footage of the photo shoot, or were you dancing?
It's dancing.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Did you put on clothes for that one?
Yes.
Yeah, it's cold. I don't blame you.
Because I wanted to put it on YouTube, and YouTube hates me naked.
That too. Yeah.
As much as like I love making naked content, I feel like there's this wall of like it can go behind the paywall, but then beyond that, it's almost like what's the point anymore? Like I used to post a lot of stuff on Flickr and DeviantArt, but both of those sites. Well, I just haven't logged on to DeviantArt in so long, but Flickr's changed so much; it's just a very different environment.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Yeah.
So, what is the vibe of these songs that you're making?
They're happy and upbeat and spreading positivity and love and joy.
What could you fit it into a genre?
Probably pop.
Pop? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, you go to the studio, they help you write it, and then you just sing your heart away.
We're able to do everything online.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely. So, do you have your own mic at home or something?
Yeah.
Okay. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I'll either come up with lyrics or something, and I'll just be like, hey, here's a blank slate. I want to make a song. Here's my vocal range, and people will work with me and make music, and then I'll sing the words, and then they'll do vocal editing and mastering and mixing and all that jazz, and then ta-da, magic song. The end.
So you say you're not good at songwriting, but you do poetry, right?
Yeah.
How do the two differ for you?
I think I can't. I can either like make a song happen if I'm just like seeing it naturally. Sometimes it'll come. Something will just come to me. But if I have one of my poems and I look at it, they don't usually have a specific rhythm. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, here's this really great poem, but I'm not sure how that transposes into a song.
Right.
And I did write poetry a lot when I was younger and more sad, and I want everybody to be happy now. Like I just want to spread positivity and joy, and I was an emo kid for several years.
Right. So when you write poetry now, is it more positive?
I don't write much anymore, sadly.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm mostly going through my old poetry and getting it into another book, but I do have one book already out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you publish them?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
What can people look for if they wanted to read your poetry?
If you just Google Jenna Citrus, and then An Opened Bookend is the first book, and then I have a working title for the second one, but I won't share it yet because I don't know what it'll end up as.
Yeah, I'm sure if they find the first one, they'll manage to find the second one at whatever point it's released.
Yeah. Or just like Spotify, you can find songs too.
Oh,
Those are
cool.
sort of poems.
Yeah, and is it under the same name, Jenna Citrus, on
Yep.
Spotify?
Hmm.
Cool. You can listen to that in our break.
Yay!
So we kind of jumped into
Songwriting.
songwriting at this point.
Sorry, modeling. Back to modeling.
That's okay. I mean, we can jump around. Um, I'm actually going to jump back to modeling because I feel like I want to ask this question before I ask the next question
Go
about
for it.
songwriting and stuff. So, hmm, hmm. Actually, I might to a completely different subject.
Okay.
No, I lied. Okay, so
I love it.
so back to modeling.
Okay.
When you, because in the bio that I had gotten,
Hmm.
you talked a lot about different art forms,
Hmm.
and then it was structured so that modeling was just not the last of this talking. But in the other ones, I noticed that it seemed to me that there was a message that you're trying to get across in the other forms. Is there a message that you try to convey to the audience through your modeling and photography?
Mm, probably not so much. Like I don't know. There's just sort of this weird disconnect. Like when I first started doing modeling, I was just very passionate about like creating these emotive, sad, deep photos. But I'm really happy now and trying to spread that message. So I feel like it's something that just sort of is like come along with me. And despite that, I make pretty much all of my money doing something naked with my body, modeling wise, like the Holy Fans Patreon thing and just modeling in general. But I don't feel like that's where my passion lies. And it is I am still totally fine doing it. Although I just said to one of my friends, I was like, I think I'm 90% retired from modeling, but that 10% of the time when I do it, I am 100% there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my passion is more just like trying to create positive responses. And this is going to sound, I guess I'm going to sound like I'm body shaming myself for a second. But I've unfortunately lost 25 pounds because I have a lot of health issues and trying to figure that out through diet. But I don't want to advocate people looking like me because I feel like I've dropped down to 103 pounds, which is like not what I would consider a healthy normal weight. And I don't want to advocate that, but yet I'm modeling naked. And so I don't want people to be like, oh, I want to be so skinny like her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wish I was more of a plus size model so I could be more on board with like, accept your body, be happy. Instead of, I sort of hate that I look like this Photoshop ridiculously skinny person. So that then like I personally am fine with it. Like I'm not, there was about 6 months where I dropped the weight and I was like, who is this person in the mirror? But like I'm comfortable with my body now, but I just don't want anyone else to like idolize it and be like, this is the ideal body type. So
Right.
I wish I looked a little different for that reason, because then I feel like I could have more of a message of like, accept your body no matter what size it is. But I feel sort of stupid saying that when I'm at the ideal body size or whatever.
Would you accept your body for you personally right now? Do you accept it the way it is?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That was one of the other things when I first started modeling with myself in the camera. I felt so ugly in the pictures, and then after time, I just got used to it. I guess there's just this weird dysmorphic thing that happens through teenage sureness, and like I hated my acne so bad. Like I'd see a picture of myself for real life, and I was like, "Can I just Photoshop this out?" But now I'm just like, "No, this is. I just sometimes have acne, and
Yeah.
I'm a person, and it's okay."
Yeah, I think it's all about, especially when it comes to photographing and for people who have acne when they feel insecure about seeing it, I feel like it's about capturing it in the right manner.
Mhm.
Because I remember, I think it was last year, I took this photo of myself and like I had really bad stress acne. So I was like, and on top of that, I guess I wasn't getting enough sleep because I had some really dark circles under my eyes at that moment. And I was like, wow, this is like not appealing, not like socially attractive, I guess. But at the same time, based off of the clothes I was wearing and how my hair was, I was like, it's kind of a look though. Like I don't hate it. You just kind of have to fit it in the right scene for what looks good to you.
I took a picture of myself and posted it on Facebook as my profile picture. I was just sitting there, just real stock still like this. And I was sunburned, and I was hot, and I was oily, and all this stuff. And everyone's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, but several people kept commenting, like, "You look bad." And I'm like, this is just me looking like me at the end of the day. So, and I mean, there's tons of terrible angles. So, I mean, it's sort of like a weird dual-edged sword of trying to capture yourself looking at this beautiful picturesque thing, but at the same time it's like I'm a normal person. I still look ugly. If you look at me this angle, this does not look attractive. So
Yeah. So would you say for the people, because you mentioned earlier how social media is making like teenagers suicidal just because of these unrealistic beauty standards. Would you say it's more about the angles as opposed to how you actually look? Like it's not that you look bad, it's just like maybe that's a bad angle.
I mean, there's tons of people that I've met offline that like I didn't recognize them in real life. We just toasted a
Yeah.
girl and I was like, "Wait, who are you?" And so like I've seen all these beauty portraits of her. And I mean, she doesn't look bad or anything, but I was just like, "I don't recognize you. Like, who are you?"
Yeah. And you have to remember like those beauty portraits are edited too.
Yes, yeah.
So it's definitely going to change a little bit how
Mhm.
they look. It's still them, but
Them on a different scale. Whenever I wear makeup and like I hate wearing makeup, and I'm glad you guys didn't do wardrobe and hair this morning. I'm like, yes, no makeup. But my mom doesn't recognize me, and I don't
oh,
recognize me,
really?
and I'm like, if your own mom can't recognize you, how can you say this is still you?
Yeah, that's a good point. So you were saying that your modeling doesn't have much of a message now because you're happy. But do you feel like you have to be sad to have a message in your content?
I feel like I was better at writing poetry and making things that just felt so deep and dark and emotional when I was in that place. But like, and my content that I make now, it's more upbeat and happy. And I know some people when I send out nude videos, they're like, "Oh, it's the girlfriend experience, and I get to experience you being happy." So like, that's something nice that I give people companionship, and I really do enjoy that. Like they can experience. I'll call it porn in quotation marks in a positive light, like a happier
Happy
version of
porn.
like, hey. Like you don't have to have the dirtiest, filthiest, kinky sex stuff. You can just be like, look, it's someone happy and smiling, and that type of thing of like consuming a more positive content. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure with what my message is with modeling. It's just something that I've been doing, and it's a job, and I don't mind doing it, and it's easy enough, and just something that happens, I guess.
Right. And that's okay. There doesn't have to be like a specific message behind it or anything.
Why is she happy?
Oh, why am I happy? Oh,
Well, yeah.
She
So
needs to ask the question.
okay.
so you had this message when you were modeling, when you well, yeah. You had a message when you were modeling when you were earlier because you were feeling sad, but now you're happy. What created this change in emotion?
I think it was back in 2014. I went through this intentional emotional shift. Back, I was probably 13 or so, and I decided to be. This is gonna sound crazy, but I was a Christian, and I decided I wanted to show people that Christians could be gothic and could be weird and different, and still be really good Christians and really good people. And eventually, I lost being a Christian and different things like that. But I went through this really deep period of depression, and then I intentionally, eventually, made like there was a whole series of going through stuff, but I intentionally decided to be happy. I was like, there's no other choice than to just embrace life and embrace being positive, because the only person you're hurting by being sad is yourself and those around you.
Right.
There's definitely been a shift in like my parents seeing me and being like, wow, I like this version of Jenna a lot better than that other version we were hanging out with. So I don't know, just being happy just feels a lot better, and it's an intentional choice. And I'm writing another book about it. I have a lot of book projects going.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to spread that message and make as many people as possible happy and share that. I don't know, it's just a much better way to be, instead of having all these. And I think it was maybe like 3 years ago, but you know, that whole negative cloud of thought of like, I'm not good enough, life sucks, blah, 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 all that. It just like eventually stopped. Like it was a very intentional process, and like switching over to positive self talk,
Mm-hmm.
trying to feel that shift in your body.
So do you still have days though where you're like this sucks?
I do. I still struggle with depression a little bit, but like I'll take magnesium and it helps a lot. Or I just like go out and try to find people to interact with, or do something. My depression used to be like so all encompassing, and like I couldn't get out of it. And now it's mostly like the happiness is all encompassing. Every once in a while there'll be a dip. It's mostly when my stomach is acting up, and I'm like, I'm eating all the right food. What else can I do to help you besides stop eating food?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit difficult some days. I'm not always 100% happy, but when I make things and interface with people, I try to bring the inner happiness out and share it.
Mm-hmm. So I know because on there's like so many different sides of social media. So there's a side where it's like toxic and like fake imagery of what you're supposed to look like. And then there's the side where it's like, we reject fake imagery. Here's some positive messages. And I've seen a lot where it's like, yeah, feel happy, but also at the same time, don't like ignore your sadness. Would you say in order to get to where you are now, you had to do that? Like ignore the sadness or the upset emotions?
I feel like I lived in it so long that I've like more than acknowledged them, and I feel like I first created them as like I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be this negative version, and then like I don't think I ignored them because I worked through them and I felt them, and I'm like, I'm tired of feeling this. Like, there is definitely something good to be said about if something bad happens, just like feeling that negativity and experiencing that grief or whatever is coming through you. But then there comes a time where you have to be like, okay, I've experienced this, and now I need to set it aside and go on with my life because you can't just kind of live in. I mean, you can live in the sadness forever. I did it for several years. I made beautiful art and very beautiful poetry that was very sad. But I don't know, just coming out of your shell and just, I don't know, embracing other things.
Right.
I do feel like there's been this weird shift towards that too. Like when I was a child and younger teenager, that there was a lot, like things were more negative, and I hate to even be this person, but like there was more sexual abuse that was just not known about. Like
Oh, yeah.
I've gone through some things that didn't feel traumatic at the time, but like looking back on them, I'm like, wow, was that person doing sexually abusive things to me and I wasn't aware of it?
Mm-hmm.
And just like everything's more in the light now, so now I can be more proactive and be like, okay, so don't let this happen because that's bad, and I don't know,
Yeah.
try to be more aware of yourself.
It's interesting that you said that you feel like back in the past there was more sexual abuse than there is now, which I think you're right. But a lot of people would say the opposite just because we talk about it a lot more. So it sounds like there's a lot more.
Mhm.
But at the same time, no one was talking about it beforehand.
Right.
And you made a good point of saying, like, oh, I didn't realize at the moment. But since we have social media now and people are so open about sexual abuse and stuff,
Mhm.
there's a bunch of signs where it's like, hey, just so you know, like if this, and this happens, it's probably not good.
Yeah.
Like you were probably abused and you might have not noticed it because you might have like convinced yourself or something, or they convinced you. But yeah, it's interesting that you said that.
I don't know. The whole sexual harassment in the workplace thing. If that had been going on when I was a teenager, I would have been so guilty of being a harassment person. Like, I have to kind of watch myself now to be politically correct a little bit too, because like, I mean, it used to be commonplace that we'd go around and bag tag people and slap them on the butt and like all
Oh
this
yeah.
crazy stuff. Like, we would sexually harass each other intentionally, but now I know better than to do that.
Right.
But yeah, teenagers, that's
Teenagers,
teenagers.
So, hmm. Would you want to take another break at the moment?
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, we'll take another break. And then once we jump back, we'll talk into some of the other art forms in greater depth that you partake in. We've kind of mentioned a few here and there. We got writing for books and stuff, songs. We haven't yet talked on like physical art though,
Oh yeah,
like studio art. Is that the proper term to call it?
sure. Or paintings,
Yeah, I
mostly.
never know what to consider that whole group, but of like painting, drawing, and
Mhm.
sculptures and such. I just refer to it as studio art. I don't know if that's proper,
That
but
seems about right. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So if you're listening at home, stay tuned. We will be back shortly. Welcome back to nudism.tv with NTR. If you're just now joining, my name is Marissa, and we are joined in studio today with Jenna. And we've talked about modeling a bit of photography, a bit of poetry, a bit of songwriting, dancing, a whole bunch of things, just a little bit. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper. Can you tell me just like all the arts that you're involved in?
Sure. I used to be so involved in painting, but I've sort of backed off of that a little bit. I have a degree in graphic design, so I know how to do book design, album cover design, flyers. I really suck at making logos, but something I'm slightly aware of how to do. Well, audiobook creation, that's another one too. And just writing in general is something I'm not, it's not easy. It doesn't come easily, but it's something that I have to work at that I feel like I can be good at, but I have to put a lot of effort into it. Let's see, what else do I do? Pretty much anything that comes into my lap creatively. I'm just always open to trying stuff. The music video production's been really fun this year. Let's see. Underwater photography. I only have a GoPro, but I love shooting with it. So I like self-shot a music video just holding the GoPro out like this. And that's been one of my favorite music videos so far.
That's fun. It's a good
Yeah.
time. Was it in a pool or like a body of water?
A pool.
Okay.
I tried one in a body of water later on the same trip, and it was just so cloudy and murky. Unfortunately, it was in the Keys. But
Were you able to have like a flash on it or something?
no, but I was up near the surface of the water.
Okay. Maybe it would help.
Yeah.
Like maybe it wouldn't have been as cloudy. I mean, probably still would have been cloudy, but maybe not as cloudy if there was a flash or something with it.
Make our oceans clean again.
Yeah, maybe if the oceans are clean, we wouldn't have to worry about that.
Oh, I have a couple more.
Yeah.
Meditation and breath work have become really important, and yoga. So I'm a substitute teacher for yoga. I'm not certified yet, but if they need someone to teach, I can step in at my local studio. And I've been making meditation music, so playing with different wind chimes and just like holistic sounds and sound baths and breath work
That's
and
fun.
all that stuff. That's a whole nother subgenre of wellness that I've gotten into this year a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
So what do you think? Do you have a favorite?
I think painting is my favorite, but I've gotten to this weird point where I've made so many paintings and I haven't sold them, so I just have them all stacked up in storage, and that's become difficult. So I used to paint a lot more, and now I have all these paintings, and I need to sell them. So I guess I need to get into the marketing of painting so I can move them out and
Right.
make more paintings.
Yeah.
So I can just really get into the flow space. Oh, and painting with my body. I think we're going to do a segment about that.
Yeah.
But like I'll use my body just as a paintbrush and just move and dance all at the same time. I love doing that.
That would be fun. It's always fun to watch. Because I did see like a video of yours that you had
Yeah.
uploaded on YouTube of body painting. And I've seen body painting where it's like, yes, I have an intent, I have a goal, and I'm using my body to paint. But yours was like, yes, I have an intent, I have a goal, I'm using my body to paint, but I'm also going to dance. Because there was like very, like when you were moving, I was like, oh, she's even pointing her toes. Like there's very specific intent in this movement, like to be dance, not just it creates a natural dance, but yours was like a very like, not, I want to say professional, but I don't think that's the word I'm looking for.
Maybe intentional. Like I'm dancing for the video instead of for the painting. Like that
Okay,
kind
yeah.
of thing. Like
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
aware of making the video aspect of it.
I think that's where the difference lies in, because I think the other ones are dancing for the painting and you're dancing for the video. So with yours, like you are going to see the type of movements that your body makes, and the other one's like, you won't see it, but you'll get the idea.
I'm still doing it. You know it's happening.
Yeah, like what's going on? So in this bio that I had for you, you had mentioned there was like kind of an emphasis on the combination of painting and video, or maybe it was photography included in that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you choose to combine those two mediums?
Well, I feel like I can't have painting without photography. Like I can make a painting and then just sell it and it be over. But one of my favorite parts is when the paint is wet, I work with it and take lots of pictures, and then I'm able to replicate and make prints from that. And I did printed clothing. I have a printed yoga mat I'll bust out later.
Oh,
And
fine.
just different, like I feel like there's almost so little you can do with a painting. Like you have this painting and then you're like, and now what? I would like something more from you.
Yeah.
So being able to create something more that's not just so static. And that's kind of the graphic designer in me too. It's like, how do we integrate art into our lives in a different way than just hanging a painting on the wall?
Right.
It's like I can wear clothes, well, I can print mugs or dinner plates and be like, oh, I get to have beauty everywhere around me in more ways than one.
Yeah, which is really nice because I feel like for me, because I was a painter as well, I'd create a painting and then it's like, I could make money off of this, but then I wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
So it's like conflicting. I even did a thing one time where I was like, you can buy this for $300, keep it for a few months, and then give it back. And they did that.
Nice.
And I was like, thank you. Like, I'll take it back now. But yeah, it's good that you take photos of it and interpret it into different things so you can always see it and it can just be part of your daily life. Because I feel like on a wall or something, you only see it if you're going past that wall.
Right.
But if you have it on a yoga mat or on a mug as well, or like
on your cell
on
phone
a dress,
background.
yeah, cell phone background. That's nice. I like that you incorporate it to quite literally everything, which is diverse. So, how does painting with your body make you feel?
I think it's fun and probably one of the best things I can do, although there's a little bit of hesitancy and I haven't done it as much as I wanted to because when I was 14, I would use acrylic paint every night and I'd go to bed with my hands full of paint and I developed pustular psoriasis and so like all the skin came off of the palm of my hand.
Oh, wow.
And so I know I have like some sort of toxicity against most forms of paint. And so whenever I do it, I now know it's like, okay, I immediately have to take a shower afterwards.
Right.
Because, yeah, that's a problem.
We've had somebody else come in and do body painting before, and before they start their painting, they just douse themselves in oil to help create a barrier.
Okay.
As well as I think acrylic's probably drying. So,
Probably, yeah.
And it makes it easier to take off, I believe. But
Well,
have you ever tried that?
I might try it when we do it here
Yeah,
shortly.
go for
That
it.
sounds like
Most
a good
definitely.
idea.
We have all the oil you need.
Awesome.
We have like a gallon.
Yeah, fantastic.
So, how did you get started in body painting?
I think when I did the 14-year-old painting with my hand thing, I'd make 4 different paintings in my notebook every night, but then I would just be so in love with how my hands would look. And so, I mean, the hands just kept going up the arms. You just keep painting more and more. But I was always painting myself for photos because I feel like after a certain time, you get tired of like, oh, this is just how I normally look. And there's only so many ways you can look different with your normal face. So I was I kind of got into makeup artistry, but I really hate the makeup industry. So there was this weird struggle back and forth of like, well, I want to use acrylics or I want to use something that's not makeup because that stuff's made out of really weird stuff sometimes.
Oh, okay. Is that why you hate the makeup industry?
Yeah, it's not regulated and you don't know what's in any of the products. And then I kind of hate that it makes everyone feel like they're ugly without their makeup too. I just want everyone to be like, hey, my normal face is beautiful. And because some people be like, don't look at me, I don't have my face on yet. I'm like, yes, you do. This is just your normal people face.
Right, true. You do have a face on.
Yeah. So many of my friends in high school were like that. They just would wear makeup 100% of the time. And like I'd do a sleepover and then they'd like not wash it off before they'd go to bed. And then they'd wake up in the morning and put more on. And I'm like, this doesn't seem good.
I didn't mean to do such like a dramatic ew. But
she just always, I'd never seen her without makeup. And we'd spent the night together several times. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what your face looks like, but oh well.
I'm just thinking about the health of her skin.
Yeah.
Just leaving it on,
and so
letting it seep in.
It makes you want to put more makeup on because you get more acne and more breakouts. You're like, oh, I need to cover it up.
Yeah. I felt the same way in high school because what made me so mad with makeup was that I would wear makeup, but I wanted it to look natural. And I was really good at making it look natural, but to the point where people were like, oh, you don't even need makeup. And I was like, so you can't tell I have makeup on right now? Like, that was a waste of my time.
I was having this conversation with myself. It's like, I'm saying I hate makeup. And I'm like, are you wearing makeup? You're wearing a little bit of makeup over there. I was like, I shouldn't hate too hard on it. Are you wearing makeup?
I just have eyebrow gel. That's it.
Yeah. I didn't want to be like, I hate makeup and it's stupid and you have to not take it off right now.
Go ahead. No, hate on it. I don't really care. I just don't have the energy in me to sit there and do makeup every day and then wash it off. I don't have the energy. So for the own health of my skin, it's a no-go.
I feel like I get so much more of my day back by not doing that. Because my aunt was asking my mom, she's like, oh, do you know what Jenna's wearing for her class reunion? And she's like, I doubt if Jenna knows what she's wearing. She's just going to get something out of the closet, put it on, and leave the house and not worry about it.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. It takes too much time, effort, and energy to put that much focus into something that, in my world, and I know everyone else has a different opinion about it, but it just feels so trivial for me. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't want to do it.
Right.
So I don't.
So do you think you had mentioned you didn't like makeup because of it's not regulated. Do you think the paint though is better than the makeup?
No, but I don't wear it all day, every day for the rest of
Right.
my life.
It's for special occasions.
And that's probably why I paint less now than I used to too. It's like my mom has a fresh air respirator in her garage because she used to do auto body painting. So whenever I'd go over to her house, I could do spray painting and not be so worried about it.
Right.
But then it'd get in your hair and you have to take a bath. And I mean, it's this whole exposure to toxicity. And so with all my digital works, I'm not exposed to anything except the computer screen, which is a whole nother toxic beast.
Yeah, that too. So I always have a question, and then as soon as I go to ask it, I'm like, huh?
I don't think I'd be a good interviewer for that reason.
Usually I'm good, but we're having like a very good conversational one. And in natural conversation, I'm always like, what? But I do have some guidance. I just don't know what my original question was, so I'll just go elsewhere. You have a lot of mediums that you're involved in.
Yep.
How did you get involved in all of these?
I think it was just sort of a slow burn, slow transition. Well, the photography and modeling came up at the same time, pretty much. But then, I don't know, I just was working with them and I'm like, oh, wow, this can go off in this other direction, become this whole new beast and animal. And I was doing painting even before that. And I was in a bunch of art classes, so I knew how to do sculpture and different things. I just wish I'd pulled more sculpture into my work nowadays because I don't work 3D. And every once in a while, I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool if I could make something 3D. And I don't.
You can always start trying.
Yeah, I can always start.
Yeah, I think you can get like really cheap oven clay or something like that, or just random objects.
I should join there's a Potter's Guild back home. I need to go join that and get involved. Well, and knitting, like I was knitting when I was 10, and every once in a while I'll just come back around and I'm knitting in the car right now on this road trip. It's that's nice to give myself something to do. It just kind of like pops up and I'm aware of it, and then it'll always circle back around, like the poetry thing. Like I was very into it as a child and I was writing all the time, and then it went away when I became happy, and then and now I'm revisiting it with a different light, and I'm like, can I make this happier? Can I make this more immersive? Can I do something to edit this book in a way that makes it different?
Right. So would you say that you're adding these new mediums specifically with the original intent of enhancing a current medium that you use? Or is it more just like curiosity and interest?
I'm not sure. I just I lose attention and focus for things. So if it's not new and refreshing and different, I get bored with it. So I keep trying to research different things and find out ways I can keep creating and making new things. So but it bounces back to photography and video and content creation in general. So there's sort of this wrapper on all of it. It's like I can call myself a creator, an artist, or whatever you want to call it, but I can wear all these hats and still make things. I think in general, I just want to make people inspired. It's probably my biggest thing, like make people happy, make them inspired, and so tell everyone it's okay to be an artist, because that's one thing. I make these dancing videos on TikTok and everyone's like, oh, I wish I could do that. And I'm like, you can just literally do it or I'll help you. You can do anything you want to.
Yeah.
It's like when someone has that activation energy of like, oh, I wish, like I'm always ready to take it over and like help someone do it or just do it myself if I have that. I'm like, I feel like there's nothing I can't do with enough help or enough training or figuring it out. Like I feel like possibilities could be unlimited if you have enough people working with you. So I just want everyone to be able to do everything they want to. Fulfill your dreams.
Yeah, I mean that's a great message. And at one point, or I don't know if this is a current message that you have, but there was a lot of mention between connecting humans to nature. Is that still something that you actively try to promote?
Yes, I think the ultimate goal of that would be for me to move back out into the country and make some little earth hut. And that's sort of on my radar of a really long-term project. I want to get a building site and make a recycled house out of available materials so I could really be living with nature. But I would do a lot of overlays of flower images on top of people's faces. So that was a series that I did. And it's not done and it's never really like hit the finished product line of it. But I'm always open to doing that and making image merges and taking people out in the nature and enjoying it.
Why do you think humans should have this connection with nature?
Well, I personally don't like cities. It feels really overwhelming to be in a big city. But we came from nature, and nature is just such a naturally relaxing thing. Like you can just step out into the forest, and for me, I'm either like immersed in awe and the beauty of it all, or just really disconnected from technology and just out in my natural environment.
Right.
And it feels a lot healthier to do. And that's been another thing with meditating, that trying to get back to nature and write things that help people feel like they're immersed in nature. I've done a few nature soundtracks and just different things to try to connect people back in nature when they don't have time to do it. Because I know everybody lives in cities and has their lifestyles and goes to work and all that stuff. But as much as possible, I'd like to be in nature.
What does a nature soundtrack sound like? Is it just sounds of nature, pretty much?
I take a microphone and I set it up in the forest and I leave it. And one of the scariest parts of it, and I edited this out, but I think a deer came up and actually bonked the microphone. And I was like, oh, or something sniffed it. And I was like, okay. But there's like little rustlings and lots of birds. And I did it at my parents' house, and I've had it on when I was in the city, and I was like, this is so comforting because it feels like I'm at home.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, it felt even more for me. I'm like, this is my nature soundtrack personally. It's like, here's my Midwest nature noises.
Yeah, it's definitely catered to what you remember, like, as your childhood. So it's a lot more homey. But I'm sure a lot of people, I mean, the animals are pretty similar. Not the same, but... So do you sit there and... How long do you record?
I leave it. I either drive my car back or walk, and sometimes about 2 hours, and then I'll go back and get it.
Do you listen to the whole thing before you're like... Do you publish it somewhere?
Yeah, I put it on Audibles for the audiobooks, and then Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Amazon, Apple, all the expanded distribution things. And I listen, I look for peaks. Like I'll go through and I'll scan it and I'll be like, okay, what's this crazy thing? I was like, oh, that's a deer hitting the microphone. Should probably get that out of there. That would be weird. And I don't always listen to the whole thing, but I listen to enough of it that I kind of have a good sense of like, where's the best part? Because they want you to get little preview samples of like, what does this sound like? So I'll find the best 5-minute segment of it to share.
Mm-hmm. Do you use like a professional mic when you go out there, or is it...
It was like $150, and there's people I work with online, and I just ask them, what's the best mic for this? And he'll be like, go buy this. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I am on the very, very bottom end of figuring out sound engineering, but I'm working on it.
We'll get there.
Yes.
You got plenty of time. You got a good start on it so far, though. It sounds like a good thing, though, because a lot of people have the nature. Ooh, you're doing videography now. Mm-hmm. Do you think you'll ever do an accompanied video with the sound?
I hate to be this person, but sometimes I think those are boring. Like I do have one person that has done them. Bunny Luna has made some videos that I love watching, but for me, I can't sit there and just watch the video of nature. It's not interesting enough. Like there has to be something going on to keep my attention.
Right.
But when I have my ears on, it's like, okay, I'm sitting here meditating and not looking for any visual inputs.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I get around the differences of that.
Yeah.
Like I have taken some nature videos, but usually it's just a few seconds.
Yeah, I think it depends on the intent, the purpose, the intent of the purpose of the use is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like if they get too long, though, that's especially when, or it's like if you're sitting there just watching a video of a waterfall, you're like, wait, and you click through the video, it's like, is this just it? Is there any more to this? Or like, when do the models do interesting things? Like that's...
Yeah.
So I don't want to diminish people that do work like that because it's so beautiful and can be so immersive, but I think I'm a little bit too fast paced to sit down and watch that.
Because I know people who use, I know there's like a series on Netflix, I forget what it's called, but it's pretty much just that, just nature shots. And I've been to a barber shop where they just have that playing, like just on the TV. They have other music playing on top of that, but they use it as like the visual ambiance, but you're getting the audio ambiance. But I know some people, like, they wouldn't use it for... I can't think of somebody using it just for the purpose of like, I want to watch this the entire thing through. I can only think of it as like a background thing where it's like, oh, I'm around the house, I'm doing stuff, and I want some nature sounds. It would be nice to look over and occasionally see some trees on my screen. Or
I could see it as like a screensaver.
Yeah, or like people who play sounds for their pets while they're gone. I think it helps sometimes. Like some people put a visual with it. Like I know people set up an iPad in front of their pet's cage and be like,
here, watch your TV. Enjoy. Don't be sad.
Yeah, enjoy this. So I guess it depends on the intent of the user. That's what I was trying to say earlier. I was using so many words to try and say that.
And now you make me want to go make them because there's other people. Just because I don't want to sit there and watch it doesn't mean there's not a purpose for it. Where I
Right,
can,
yeah, you can always find a purpose for some type of art,
Mhm.
for some type of creation.
I try to make stuff that I want to consume, though. That's sort of my,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
you'd create the best products that way because you know what people want to see because you would want to see it.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that in the bio, not
Mhm.
on camera, you had mentioned that you have a distinctive way of applying paint with the hand painting series.
Oh, yeah.
What exactly is this distinctive way?
So I use usually their friend, family members, or anyone that will sit still long enough. I'll have them do this with their hand, and then I will squeeze paint onto their hand and use it like a paintbrush. And so I'll be like, "Oh, move your hand over here," and we'll fill up a canvas that way. But the way the paint runs down, it swirls and makes this
Ah,
really neat drip pattern. And then their hand is also very beautiful at the end. And so I take a picture of their hand as sort of a finished art piece, and then they have a finished painting to go with it too.
that's fun. Yeah, I've never heard of anyone doing that. Truly unique to you. How big are the pieces usually when you do this?
Usually, I think the biggest one I've made is 16 by 20, but typically 11 by 14 or 5 by 7, because I've done it with some, like a parent and child will sometimes hire me and they'll do it together.
Oh, that's
Or
fun.
like I've had my mom and dad hold hands and then drip paint down them too. I was like, well, that's cute.
Yeah.
So
Does it fill like every inch of the canvas or do you? Oh, wow.
it
That's
takes
so
a while.
much.
Usually
Yeah.
it's like an hour or so. It's a pretty intensive process and there's so much paint on the canvas and then it
Oh,
takes
yeah.
about 5 or 6 days to dry, even though it's acrylic,
Yeah, and acrylic dries fast.
but just not for that.
Yeah, not when you have that thick of a layer.
I feel like I need to get my phone out and like show you all of these things. I'm
I
like, look,
know.
look.
I would love to see all of these at some point. So I feel like I'd be diving deep if I continued. I feel like I forgot to set my timer, but would you like to take a break at this
Sure.
moment? Okay. We'll come back and dive a little bit deeper. I keep saying that.
And even deeper and
Have
deeper
we?
and deeper.
Do you think we've dove deeper within this time, or do I just keep saying that?
I mean, it's definitely a different topic. I mean,
I know,
it's,
yeah, it's hard because it's not like I'm going deeper on one topic. Like I'm just going.
I have too many topics to cover.
There's
I'm
so much.
sorry.
But we'll either way. When we come back from this, we'll be diving deeper into something, deep into something.
I like it.
So stay tuned. I wish we had some theme music to like start off the segment, like dun dun
Dun, dun,
dun.
dun, dun,
Yeah, maybe you can create our theme music.
Bring it on.
Welcome back to nudism.tv with another segment of NTR. I'm Marissa, and in studio today we have Jenna. We were talking about a lot of things, and I said I was going to dive deeper into something, and here's the something. So I feel like you've told me a little bit about this so far, but can you explain to me a little bit more how you explore the human form in your art?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like there's just a lot of different parts and pieces to the human form and like the being and existence. And well, for a while I was doing a project called the 10,000 Project. I gave up on it because there was too many, but I think I got to about 3,000 photos.
Oh,
But
wow.
I was just trying to capture different human emotions and just like the entire human experience through photography. So that was a long project that I worked on for a while. And I feel like I'm still sort of doing that without going in and labeling each file. This is number 437.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just really want to like share what it feels like to be human and some of the more positive aspects of that too. Especially now that I'm happier. But back when I started, I was still in that sad place and
Mhm.
just exploring all the deepness and depth of feeling. And this is sort of a little bit off topic, but I do feel like when I was younger, like my first love, all of those emotions, and I was a teenager, so there's that. But things were just so intense and so overwhelming. And now like things will come and go and like feelings will happen, but it's not this like overwhelming urge and desire to just like be very dramatic. So
Right. So, to our younger viewers out there, would you say, because it's hard. I feel like I've been debating the phrase lately of life gets better, but it's like, does it get better,
it
or do I just like
does.
adjust to how it goes, and it keeps like building
Ooh.
on difficulty, and I'm like, well, I have experience from adjusting, so I can now easier like have an easier adjustment, but at the end of the day, it's not easier.
I think it gets easier to cope with things. How about that? Like you get used to things. And I don't know, I feel like our worlds have sort of been shifting in a positive manner. Like things are becoming more enlightened and people are meditating more and working towards a better goal. And like even in the workplace, you see all this like health and wellness things coming up as a part of, I'll call them real people jobs. Like
Hmm.
if you're working at Google or whatever, some big company, they have all these things in place where they're trying to implement wellness projects. And I'm like, this seems like everyone's shifting towards wellness and well-being and caring about people more and just being more conscious too. Because it used to be you go to the factory, you do your 9 to 5, and you leave and you go in and out and do the thing, and no one cares about you, no pension, blah blah blah. But now everyone's a little more concerned about people's well-beings and long-term sustainability too. And thankfully, everyone's a little more concerned about climate change.
Hmm.
Someone needed to be. Eventually, someone had to figure that out.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that because at a different job that I've had, it was a small company and it was just building up, like just kind of beginning. And I remember like having a meeting with everyone and I was like, yeah, so I get really tired just like sitting at this desk. It's really hard to just sit here and
Yeah.
work. So can we like have a middle of the day yoga session with everybody? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And they're like, well, I don't know if I can join, but like you can do it. And I was like, all right, I would like for everyone to join me, but
Mm-hmm.
if not, that's okay. But yeah, a lot of companies are more okay with
Taking breaks
taking
and
time for their own health
yeah.
because I was the youngest one in the setting. So it's like a different generation. So I was like, I don't know if they're going to be like, get out of here. Or if they're going to be like, yes, yoga. And I was the only female. So also it's like, guys, sometimes I feel have a stereotype for yoga, and they're like, oh, that's a female thing. So I was like, are they
They
gonna
fight
want
it a
to
little
do?
bit.
Yeah, I was like, do they want to do yoga with me?
Yes, do it. It's healthy for you. Well, I think people are more okay with taking breaks now too. Like there's the whole thing I've been learning about every 20 minutes you should take a 2 minute walk
Hmm.
around. And I think places of business are more okay with that like now. It's like as long as you can get your work done, you can do whatever you need to do to keep yourself healthy and comfortable. But
Yeah, I've had professors tell me that before, and like other students who would tell me about how they were so stressed with the workload, but then they started doing this 20-minute thing where it's like study or work for 20 minutes and then reward themselves for 5 minutes or
mhm.
something, and then get back into the 20-minute. But I also had a different professor that was like, well, it takes you
Oh,
this amount
15
of minutes, yeah,
minutes.
like 15 minutes to get focused or something,
I
even if it's like
disagree.
you're distracted for 1 second. And I was like, it depends on how I want to be focused. If I genuinely want to be focused on something and I hear like an alarm go off for something, I'm not going to be oh no, it's gonna take me 30 minutes to get started.
I think that one is a lie, I think, in my opinion, because I try not to multitask, but I will have multiple tabs open, so I'll like pop over to this browser and be like, oh, let me do that. Then I'll pop back over and I'm pretty refocused, unless I'm trying to edit or write. Those are the two things. It's like, okay, that I could see it could take a couple minutes to
Mhm.
refocus and recenter and be able to do it. But I do set the 20-minute alarm for writing and editing. I'm like, okay, I'm only going to do this for 20 minutes and then focus really intensely
Yeah.
and then go take a break. It's like I'm not allowed to even go to the bathroom during these 20 minutes because I have to write. It's a procrastination tactic.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could be in the bathroom for like 3 hours and be like, "Oh yeah, I was just having a
It's
bathroom break."
right.
um, Kind of going back, we got sidetracked for a second, but
Yes.
going back to exploring the human form in your art, you said that you wanted to show emotion and positivity, but what does that look like? You explained that you did it through photography, but
Mhm.
what exactly are you capturing?
Well, I think one of the things that I've been doing lately, well, some people say I should probably patent or trademark my smile because it's like I try to use the Jenna smile all the time, just like sharing all of that happiness with people. And like when someone can see an image and just really feel that happiness being channeled through it, I love being able to share that with people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways it can look like, and just like peacefulness and mindfulness and serenity and tranquility are another a few of the other ones I'm really excited about portraying lately.
Is this something that you do explicitly through photography?
Pretty much, yeah. Or sometimes the audiobook versions of things too. I have a project that I haven't worked on very much, but I know it's on. Excuse me, it's part of the Exhale book project, and one of the parts of it I want to just do a nature experience. Like maybe there's nature noises too, but I want to walk people through. Like you could close your eyes and just say, and there's a tree on your left, and you can see the
Mm.
leaves reaching out, touching the sky, and just be very descriptive
topic at hand, and I keep going off on sidetracks. So I'm gonna focus myself. But so you have the Inhale project. What does a meditation audiobook sound like? What does that, I guess, look like? I don't know.
Here, I'll just do
Yeah.
try to do a little thing real fast. Breathe in slowly through your diaphragm, letting it expand. Release the air as you exhale, finding relaxation. Breathe in and breathe out. Feel the calming, cooling energy flowing throughout your body, relaxing you as you release any tension. So something like that.
Yeah.
And I have different ones that are like breath count. So I'll be watching a metronome and I'll be like, okay, this is 5 seconds on the inhale, 5 seconds on the exhale. So I know what people are doing. Because sometimes I'll try to count in my head, but counting is a whole other form of distraction instead of
Yes.
actually meditating.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'll put these tracks on, and sometimes it's a bell. It's like I'll ring some wind chimes. So people will be like, okay, breathe in for this count, and then I'll breathe out when you hear the chime again.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of lets your mind be able to be a little more released and in the moment. And I find myself, if I just have to sit here really quietly, I can't seem to do it for very long.
Right, yeah.
I'm still at the beginner stages of meditation where your mind wanders, and it's natural. It's what it does. It's its job. But being able to train it back in or bring it back in, or even just like connect it to an audio person where they're telling you, oh, relax. Okay, remember, keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. How long do these audiobooks usually go for?
The 3 that I've released right now are about an hour, and then the one Bunny, Leor, and I are working on, we were thinking about 5 hours, and there's a couple different parts and sections of it, so we're deciding if it'll be segmented or we'll just put it all together. But I was going for 5 hours, although I think we have about 2 hours of it recorded.
Okay, that's good.
It could be 5 hours, or we could just be like, okay, it's 2 hours, it's good, let's release it.
Yeah. How does that work when you have an audiobook that's collaborative? Like, is it like, oh, you get this chapter, you get that chapter, I get this chapter?
We were co-writing it, and we decided to just let it all be in my voice for this one, but we're going to do other projects in the future where we'll either get together in person or be able to mix audio tracks too. Mm-hmm. So it'll be a little more collaborative with the voice thing.
Okay.
But I was working with the setup and the mic and all that stuff at my house, and we all live far away from each other.
Yeah, like there's all different states, right?
Yeah, Leor's in Pennsylvania, Bunny is in North Carolina.
Yeah, and then you're from Kentucky.
Yeah.
So how did you guys get started on this together?
Leor had I think it was a sexual healing workshop that they hosted through Zoom, and I attended that, and I wrote them afterwards, and I said, that guided meditation you sent us through was just so moving and so amazing. And I think that was December. And back in October, I did NaNoWriMo and NaNoWriMo. I never say it out loud, I just type it. But the thing where you write a novel in a month in November. And so in preparation for that, I was like, can I do 1,000 words a day? And so I was just writing, and guided meditations is what I was writing. I was like, I wasn't trying to write that. I just sat down to write, like I was writing poetry, whatever came across. And I was writing all these guided meditations. I'm like, these are okay, but they're not great. And then I heard Leor do that, and I was like, Leor needs to help me with this project.
Yeah.
And then Leor brought Bunny online, I think in February.
Okay.
So we've been working on that for, I gue about a year now.
Oh, wow. When do you think it'll be released?
We were hoping it would be released 2 months ago, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I've started releasing parts of it, so maybe we can finish that part of it and release that and move on to different parts of it. Because I think it could be just like a big project that we keep doing. It's like, so since one part of it is just musical notes, and then other parts are like breathe in, breathe out, and then the other parts are walking someone through an entire guided meditation and focusing on body scans and different types of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that part, that's the super collaborative part, and I've released the other like pre-parts to it.
Okay.
So hopefully we could either just finish it up and wrap it up and then do another part to it, so we can get them out there.
So how does a 3-person collaborative work on that? Because you said that you were writing originally on your own, mm-hmm. and then you're like, wow, yours was good. I could use their help on this.
Yeah.
Is it all 3 of you collectively writing something? Like somebody comes up with something and you all tweak it together? Or what does it look like?
It kind of takes different shapes depending on like what's exactly going on. Because we used to meet Wednesdays all the time, but because no one was doing anything in COVID. But we've been traveling lately, so we haven't met for a couple of months. But we would mostly just meet up and talk about different things and get ideas, bounce things off each other. And I'd ask questions because I'm mostly the one doing the in the field writing, and then Bunny's really good at editing. And Lior will sometimes come in. When Lior doesn't edit, it's like a real overhaul of a piece. So if I have something I'm like, this is garbage, but I like this idea, and then I'm like, Lior, fix it.
Yeah.
So we all have our different strengths and things
That's
that we
good.
bring to the table.
That'll be a fun project.
Yeah.
Well, a fun, complete project.
I'm hopeful that we can get together for maybe like a week in person so we could just like write and then we could all record together.
Yeah.
Because I think we could do some really neat sound bath things where we talk and just play musical instruments together and have different people co-lead. I think that could be really neat.
Most definitely. That'd be really cool and relaxing.
Yeah. I think one of us said at one point in time, it's like when we do our Zoom meetings, it's almost like our church because I don't have a church anymore. So I'm like, hey, the meditation is my spiritual practice, and we'll sort of hold each other accountable and be like, hey, did you do any meditating this week? What's your spiritual health like?
Yeah.
So that's great to collaborate with them.
Yeah, that's good to have a check-in point.
Yeah.
Especially when you what's the word I'm looking for? I was gonna say deteriorate. That's not at all the word I was looking for. But when you depart, I think, from a church or something, it's good to like still have a base ground. So what made you depart from the church to begin with?
I just didn't like and my church wasn't like this, but they started hating on LGBTQ people, and just like I saw all this like dissonance in church and like all the Catholic sex sins and all this just different stuff that was happening. I was like, I don't really want to be a part of that. And as much as I love Christmas songs and singing them, that's probably about the only part that I'm super connected to. And I don't know, it just didn't feel right. It felt like something my parents forced me to do as a child, and I'm like, I don't want to make the choice to do this anymore.
Right.
And I would go to a church if it was more. I've gone to one Universal Unitarist church, and that was pretty neat.
What does that mean? What is it?
I think it's a non-denominational church where they don't. I think they let you do whatever you want to do, but then they'd like deliver a positive message.
Okay.
So if there's a church like that, or it's like even a yoga church, or I kind of get my church through yoga now. But I would love to do more spiritual practices and community building too. Because a lot of it this year has just been by myself.
You're right. You said it was Christian, or what was it? Catholic?
It's Universal
No,
Unitarian.
the
the one
one
I
that
went
you
to.
originally
Yeah, it
was-
was United Church of Christ. And
Okay.
they weren't being particularly bad or hateful against anything. We just never talked about it. So that made me be like, is this a don't ask, don't tell situation?
True. Yeah. Silence doesn't mean good.
Yeah.
You still got to speak up on it.
I think so much of Christianity is just like so backwards where it's like love and accept everyone. And then they're like, accept all these people because they don't believe in Jesus and they're going to hell. I'm like,
Right.
wait, what?
Love and accept the ones that are like us.
Yes.
Pretty much.
And I think all the religions are trying to say the same thing as like believe in God, but then they're like, well, all these people are going to hell and all these people are going to hell. And I'm like, I don't like the whole going to hell thing. Let's just leave that alone. And
Right. It's kind of, I just thought of this while you were saying that, but even the people who are like, I don't believe in a God or anything. I believe in the universe and a higher power. But at the same time, you do believe that higher power gives out karma. So there's like still a hell to it. Karma is the hell.
hell on earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did you feel during the time while you were Christian and being a nudist? Does that seem to contradict with the beliefs?
Probably. It's kind of like, well, because when you asked me the question, are you a nudist? And I answered most of the time. I was like, well, I would definitely not be a nudist at church. So,
Right.
I mean, there's like different times where like, oh, it's comfortable. That's okay. I can step into nudity. But like, the two never crossed each other's paths.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you go to church, you wear your church clothes, and you come home and you have to take them off and do whatever you want to. But there wasn't much of an overlap for that.
Yeah.
I didn't really ever feel the whole body shame, hating yourself for being naked, and I don't like the whole Adam and Eve story about now we feel ashamed of our bodies. I'm like, no, everyone needs to be happy and embrace their bodies,
Yeah.
embrace positivity.
I was actually thinking, completely different generations, but I was thinking of that yesterday, and I made the comparison to Adam and Eve and their sins to, there's this one episode of SpongeBob where like Squidward's just falling in this tunnel of evil. And I feel like, and it's just like green, but a brownish green, purple, blacks, flames at the bottom, and an evil, deep laugh. And he's just falling for eternity. I feel like that's what we got put into. I feel like they ate an apple and all of a sudden it was like, no, this eternal tunnel of doom. That's what it felt like to me. I was like, wow, we really just went from that to this. That's crazy.
But I feel like there's some stopping that and like being able to take a step back and be like, whoa, we're in this rat race, but do we really need to be? Like, is there a way we could do some other things differently? And I haven't done it much, but I would really love to explore like communal living and just different like, ways of being too.
Yeah. Is there a place, like a specific city or something that you would want to try communal living?
I haven't seen one that sounds ideal. I read one of the audiobooks I was reading mentioned one, but it was back in the 70s. And I'm like, I don't think it's there anymore.
What about, so what is can you give a definition of communal living?
Well, there's a whole bunch of sort of like little subcategories. Because I mean, there's something as simple as like having roommates and sharing a house. But for me, I would want something a little more like you feel like you're living with an extended family.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone would sort of take care of each other, and you might take turns cooking and eat meals together, and just help like people would garden together and raise your own food and sort of. I guess an off-grid commune is my ideal type of situation. But on the other hand, I don't know how much I'd like it once I was in there and doing that lifestyle every day.
Right.
So being able to have an option to like jump in, experience it, and maybe have to jump back out.
Somebody that I know did something similar to that in Hawaii.
Oh, cool.
And they had like this, I don't know how they got it. I don't know what it was called. I don't know what they were doing exactly, but they just up and moved to Hawaii by themselves and met this group that they were living with. And they would do all these things and like all this work together. It was mainly nature based too. So they're doing a lot of environmental work in Hawaii. But that sounds like something you should look into that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, especially if you like nature, like that might be a good fit. And getting the nature sounds of Hawaii while you're out there,
Yes.
that'd be a nice experience.
That'd be really cool.
Because I'm sure it sounds a lot different than the United States.
Yes. Hawaii is on my bucket list for sure. So
Yeah.
being able to know that there's some place set up like that I could just go and live of and be a part of that.
Right.
We're going to an ashram. I think there's one in New York that I wanted to go to, but they wanted you to go for a full month. And I was like, I don't know if I can commit that right now.
What is an ashram?
It's a similar type of thing, but it's more based around yoga and meditation.
Ah.
So it's like everyone lives together and I guess dorms and different things.
Is there like work? Like, can you make money while you're there? Or is it just like you have this money, you spend it on this month's stay, and you do the activities?
I think they might have different levels of it, but I think you do have to pay to go. And because I have seen some people that live in hostels and like they'll just like work at the hostel for some hours and then they get to stay at the hostel for free.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's different like scholarship opportunities or things like that. But I think you do have to work as part of it. Just like going there, you pay your money and you go work at least some too.
Right. Yeah. So at one point you had mentioned something about shame and body a second ago, like not too long ago. But you mentioned earlier that you don't want to represent like a negative body image. Like, sure, it's praised, but at the same time, it might be negative to healthy people.
Right.
Not that you're not healthy.
People that have larger, fuller body types. Well, I'm going to take my mom, for example. She weighs like 138 pounds and she absolutely hates, she has a little belly bulge, and she can't stand it. And she's like, Jenna, I love how skinny you are. You just look so perfect in this dress. And it just makes me wish I was bigger so I could be like, look, I also weigh 138 pounds. I'm the same weight as you. And
Yeah.
I still look good. Like, I just don't want anyone to ever feel ashamed for having a belly or boobs or butt or thighs or anything that makes them feel too big. And then they see this skinny person, they're like, oh, I want to be this skinny person. Like, I don't want to promote super skinniness.
Right. Have you ever had any other body issues? Like, because you don't have an issue with your body necessarily right now, right?
I can't eat food.
Well, yeah. Emotional body issues.
Not so much. When I was a kid, just the acne was mostly a problem, but like I'm fairly happy and healthy in my body, but I had gained 20 pounds, and when I lost it, I had really intense body dysmorphia for about 6 months because I'm like, I don't know who this really skinny person is. I don't feel comfortable in them. because I'd gotten used to having I mean, I wasn't like super heavy, but I was at least a little bit extra heavy. And I was like, I feel comfortable with this.
Mm-hmm. How did you get yourself to feel comfortable once you gained weight? Because I know a lot of people have issues with that.
It happened very gradually, and I was still modeling and and there were things where it's like I would wear clothes and my I would have things that didn't quite fit in the clothes perfectly anymore. And so I'm like, well, that's just how I look. I accept this, and I'm getting older. I'm not a teeny bopper high school person, so I have a full framed body, and now I am a teeny bopper high school looking person, and I'm like, ah, how did this happen?
Right.
But
Yeah, because I feel like for most people, it's gradual.
yes,
You don't notice it, but then once you notice it, it's like, I wasn't like this yesterday. But in reality, it happened over time. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. Even though that hasn't been such a main issue for you, do you by chance have any tips for people who might look at themselves and be like, because you were okay with the fact that everything didn't fit perfect. But a lot of people see that and they're like, oh no, this is terrible. This is the end. This is not acceptable. So do you have any advice on how they can better accept that?
I could try, but as much as I will depart as much wisdom about this as I can, you have to be willing to accept it is the other part of it. Because as much as I tell my mom, Mom, you are so beautiful. I love you just the way you are. You don't need to lose weight. She's like, yes, I do. And as long as you have that attitude, you'll never be able to accept it. So I would say if you're able to put that aside and just step back for a moment and just embrace who you are right now and just close your eyes, and you don't even have to think about your physical body. You can just say, I'm a being, I'm an energy being, and how I feel in the center of the core of my body is how I am. And you can open your eyes and look in a mirror and just say, I love you, and give yourself a hug and just be happy in the moment and embrace who you are. Because you are more than your body. You're your personality, you're your mind. You're just a beautiful person that, if you're whatever size you are, it doesn't matter.
I think that was still pretty good advice because there's some things you threw in there that people might tend to forget. Like you have to be willing, like willing to accept this is okay, even though you may want to, but are you really willing to accept it?
Yes.
There's a difference.
That you just want to jump to the end where you're like, I accept myself, but you have to like lay down a few things. Like, well, the I never want to be a nutritionalist because I've had so many experiences with them. You go to a nutritionalist, they're like, oh, here's what you need to do. You need to change your diet, blah, 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 do all these things. And here's how to be healthy. They've given you the secret of how to be healthy, but it is following that instruction every single day, every single minute of your life to get there. And so you just have to actually have 100% of internal willpower and be ready to change. And that is not an easy place to get to.
Right. One thing that we haven't really talked about, but we kind of mentioned, was how do your parents feel about you being a nude model?
They're pretty okay with it. When I first started, they weren't so okay with it.
Yeah.
I think I was 19, and my parents had my Flickr page, and they'd look at my photography, and they're like, Jenna, take these down. What are you doing naked with your boyfriend online? So they freaked out for a while. But I have had some help from them every once in a while. Like I'll be doing a nude self-portrait at home, and I'll be like, can you just push the button? And some of my mom and dad have helped me with those. But I don't live with them anymore. So the responsibility falls on Brian. I'm like, hey, push the button for me. So they're pretty okay with it. They like that I'm able to make a stable-ish income from it, so they're happy about that.
Yeah, most definitely. How do you think they were able to accept it?
I don't know, because for a while they just like saw it and they're like, no, not this. And as much as I also want to advocate this for any like 18, 19-year-olds that are considering going into this industry, like I would suggest not nudism in general, that's fine. But just like being an OnlyFans Patreon creator, like I highly suggest not to do it as much as possible to new creators. Like if someone has their mind made up, I will gladly help them. But on your way in, I'm like, you sure you don't want to be a scientist? Like mathematician would be a good job for you. I'm like, consider other options first, because once you open this door, some things shut. And things are being a little bit more liberal nowadays, but they haven't always been. And this does cut off certain job opportunities. So.
Right. Because they always say, like, the internet haunts you. Once you post it, it's there forever.
Just never make any content that you're ashamed to show your parents. That's what I like to say.
Right, yeah. And it sounds like you were never ashamed. Like, they just kind of saw it and you uploaded it like, there it is.
And they're like, no. And now every once in a while, because like I try not to just like show my parents nudes all the time.
Right.
But I'm like, look at this one. She's like, that's a good one.
That's good. That's progress.
Yeah.
We're getting there. It's interesting that your parents felt that way when they saw your nude photos, considering they weren't maybe nudist themselves, but they enjoyed being nude and they
Yeah.
understood like it's not always sexual. So it's interesting that they saw that all of a sudden you posting it online was like, oh no.
I think they saw my future melting before me. I think that's what it was. They're like, "Oh, Jenna, no, I don't want you to be whatever we want to call my job, a naked model or whatever." They're like, "I want you to go be an artist that doesn't get so naked or whatever." So I think they just didn't want me to compromise myself at such a young age, but they were aware of it, and so became more supportive the older I got. And
Which is good.
Yeah.
Did they ever try to give you like a guideline of what you could and couldn't do, like things that were okay with them in regards to nude modeling?
Yeah, my mom actually. I sat down with her right before I went on a tour, and she like didn't want me to do Playboy style nudes, and I'm like, that's okay. I want to keep you happy, so I don't do that. And
Okay.
she doesn't want me to do like porn, and that's fine too. So I have a few limits in nude modeling, and that are set up by my mom.
If your mom didn't feel any sort of way on these things, would you do them?
That is such a hard question because as a non-nude model, just like as a sexual person, I would be so excited to be in lesbian porn because I have so few encounters with women that would just be like, "Yay, get to have sex with women all day."
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've just not done it for so long. It might be a weird shift
Right,
to
at this
jump into
point.
porn. Yeah.
That's understandable.
But that would make me at least a little bit happier, although it's be like, oh, people are having sex with you for money. They're not just like having sex because they find you attractive. So I'm like, nah, see.
Yeah, you still
Yeah.
have fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
For a second, here and there, you mentioned nutrition.
Mhm.
What is nutrition to you? Because you mentioned that you had an interest or something in nutrition.
I have a lot of gastrointestinal issues, and if I am very strictly sugar-free, dairy-free, egg-free, nut-free, if I am all of these things and I eat fresh fruits and vegetables and sometimes meat, because I'm on the fence, like I've heard so many good things about being vegan, but I still eat meat. Nutrition is just what keeps me able to be physically fit and healthy. Because if I'm not, some of those most recent depression days, I was nursing a terrible bellyache, just sitting there kind of crying, being like, "What am I doing wrong? What can I not eat?"
Yeah.
And it was things that are like, I'll call them gluten-free vegan junk foods.
Oh, yeah.
Like pretzels or gluten-free Oreos, which are amazing. And I have such a bad sugar addiction. But when I don't eat sugar, I feel good.
Mhm.
And when I get sad, I crave sugar and then I eat it. And then my brain feels happy and then my body feels unhappy. So it's just a big struggle back and forth. And I don't think if I had these digestive issues, I wouldn't care about nutrition.
Right.
But
yeah.
I do, and it's haunted me since before second grade or so, and I've never been able to figure out what it was except on this very strict diet, which is saying no to all things delicious, which is okay.
There's a few things
Yeah,
delicious.
They're good things. I get enough nutrition. I'm the eating because you have to live, not living to eat.
Yeah, I feel that.
Because I mean, I would just sit there and eat Oreos and ice cream all day and cake like I used to,
Right.
and that's how I gained 20 pounds.
Ah.
It wasn't a secret. It's like I'm not willing to give up eating Oreos because I don't want to be skinnier.
Right. So there it goes again. Where it's like, oh yeah,
Nutrition.
question. Oh no question. So nutrition. Gonna run this back. We're talking about nutrition. Dieting. Not dieting. Wow. It's just really stumped myself on this one. Hold on.
Sure.
Maybe there's a chance I wrote it in my notes, but I don't think it was. I think it was based off of something that you said, and I was like,
Gotta remember
question. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna try and run back through what we just said with you and see if it'll just pop back into my mind. Because I remember it like left a few times, and I was like, "Oh, got it." So I asked you why you're into nutrition is because dietary purposes. Got it. So with sugars, you like sugars. Is there a difference between artificial and like fruit sugars for you? Can you tolerate like fruit natural sugars?
Natural fruit I can definitely tolerate. aspartame is one of the worst ones because I used to eat these mints and they were giving me really bad problems. I try to avoid all artificial sweeteners just based on the purpose of like, I don't really know what these are. And they're basically an experiment. They've all been created within the past 50 to 70 years. And we don't have generational studies of like, oh, well, we kind of do because everyone has heart disease and everyone's obese right now. Like, those are the indicators of all this junk and processed food is not healthy. And as much as I like mentally love and want to eat it, I know how bad it is for everybody. So I'm trying to really just step back and not eat so much of it.
You'll be the one person that just outlives everybody.
Yeah. It won't be worth it at that time anymore because everyone's dead.
Right, yeah. You'll just be, you found the secret to eternal life.
It's just don't eat sugar.
Don't eat artificial processed foods, you know, just the natural stuff.
There are people that are hardcore and have been doing this a lot longer than I have because I'm still in the I'll mess up every once in a while or be like, because I mean, you can't go to a restaurant. It's like you can go at Olive Garden is the perfect example. The two things I can eat at Olive Garden are iceberg lettuce, which has no nutritional value, and olives, which I love, but it's not a meal.
Yeah.
So there's just so little food at some restaurants. And I mean, it's just not healthy. So that I would love to see a revolution of restaurants become more healthy and more like wholesome based and salad bar style of like, oh, actual real fresh ingredients. I could eat those. Hey, good job. But
Right.
even some health food stores put sugar on things. It's like I saw sweet potatoes and it's like coated in honey. And I'm like, nah.
Can you not have honey?
Honey's one that I personally just don't know if it agrees with me too well. But like in the general diet world, I would assume honey is one of those natural sweeteners that's okay to have.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I would have thought if fruit's okay. Honey's pretty natural.
Honey is pretty natural.
Unless people are like adding stuff to their honey.
Although if you're a vegan, you probably shouldn't eat it because it's an animal product. But
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But bees like make it because they want to make it. Like we're not forcing them.
well, it's like milk, though.
Well, we're kind of forcing the cows.
That's true.
And we don't have them in the best living conditions on top of that. Yeah. But with bees, like we just let you roam the earth and then I guess we're stealing it.
There is no good answer. I mean, if you want to get real crazy about fruits, it's like you're plucking the berries off and eating them instead of letting them reproduce. So I don't know how far down that rabbit hole.
But they need to be plucked off, don't they?
No, they can just rot and then fall down.
Yeah,
and
then they're being
make seeds.
wasted.
They get
know.
decomposed and go back into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, now I have this whole theory about bees in my head. Like, what if, because I was like, can you pay a bee? Is it okay in that sense? You pay them by planting flowers specifically for them, and by their little home, they get all the, I assume they're happy to do this.
I don't think so, because when you come in and harvest the honey, there is one hive that I've seen
that's the part where it's like, harvesting it? Yeah, I know about that.
If you just left them alone and let them have a beehive, they'd be perfectly happy. But
yeah.
When you come in and steal some of their honey, they're not too thrilled about that.
What was the story of the one beehive that you had seen?
Oh, I think it was called Flow. It was on Kickstarter, and somehow it like magically gets the honeycombs, and you pull a switch, and it like opens them and lets the honey flow out, so you don't have to disrupt the hive.
Oh.
But in the same note, I mean, you're still ruining their hive, so
right.
I don't know. I'm not a beekeeper, although I looked into it for a while. I am a worm farmer.
A worm farmer?
Yes.
What does that mean? What does that look like?
I have these big bins in my basement, and I put my compostable scraps in there, and the worms eat it, and then I get really nice compost from them.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's fun. I feel like people are like, ew, worms. Worms are great.
Yeah, they're kind of snuggly. I mean, they're kind of
cute. They really are.
They're like about that big, and you can just pick them up, and they don't really like to be held, but they tolerate it.
You're right, yeah.
They want to be in the dark.
Yeah, when I was landscaping, every time I would like dig a hole to plant a tree or something or flowers, I would find a worm and I'd be like, oh, time to move you. And I'd be like, nice to see you. Give them a little pat on their back, move them. And then, of course, I worked with men and they didn't like that I was taking care of these worms. So I would be like, guys, don't step here. I put a worm here. And they would come with their shovel and just kill it. I was like, bro, that defeated the whole purpose. I was always so mad when they did that. I was like, stop. Yeah, I was like, leave me and these worms alone. We're not doing anything. They weren't even working in my area, too. It was just
like,
really
I'm going to come over and kill all of your worms.
Pure act of anger.
That makes me sad.
Right. It was so disappointing.
I did work on an organic farm for a while, so I was pretty into the whole trying to keep everything alive and coexisting together.
Right.
Because put it back into the cycle. Compost, eat, repeat.
Yeah, so like you have to eat healthy, not by choice. But it seems like you're making some like environmentally conscious decisions of how you are doing things, which I feel like people tend to pair hand in hand with like vegetarian and vegan. What made you start? Was it because you're working on this farm, or did you just already have an interest for the environment?
I had read a book that said that if you immerse yourself, like people aren't connected enough to the earth, and so they're not getting the microbes they need. And so in my mind, that was like, hey, go work on an organic farm, get your fingers dirty, and you will get healthier. And that did not work. So
Right.
I changed. I was like, 4 months later, I am not healthier, and I'm
Yeah.
sad, and I'm exhausted. But it is a lot of work to do farm work. I mean, maybe I was doing 8-hour days, so like a 4-hour day or something a little smaller might have been more manageable. But I was just really sad that all the earth microbes, I was like, why am I not fixed?
I know. I don't know what it is.
But I was still eating dairy and everything. And it's not that I never eat dairy. I'm on that line of like, okay, I can tolerate like a tablespoon of cheese a day. So there's like these, like, I don't know, I feel like I cheat, and I'm like, I wish I was more like 100% strict and I could advocate for that and be like, it's so easy, you just do this and never
Right.
eat junk food again. But I'm still on that struggling person. Like I have the will to change, but I just can't keep it every single day because it's like, oh, well, those are gluten free and Oreos and mine and delicious. And so sugar doesn't, my body doesn't like sugar, but I love sugar.
Right. You're a pretty realistic view, though. Like, because people are always think when they think of vegan or gluten free or something, they think of some spokesperson that's like, yes, it's great, do it, I love it, there's no struggle. But you're over here like, oh, it's a struggle.
It's so hard. Every day is a struggle because there's temptations, and like it's just so easy to go to a restaurant and order something normal and not have to be like, does that have eggs in it? Does that have nuts in it? Does that? So I guess I've been doing this maybe 5 months really strictly trying to do this. And so I'm not at the end of the journey where I'm like, it's so easy. You just don't eat sugar. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's difficult because most things have sugar, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
I feel like even like hearty meals, are like, oh yeah, add some sugar
Or gluten. Or
or gluten or nuts or
I mean,
eggs.
gluten is so everywhere. Yeah. And then eggs are in gluten. And yeah, it's a whole thing.
So what does a meal look like for you?
I like my smoothies. So I make smoothies. I like fruit cups. I want to say salads. I don't really like salads.
I don't think anyone does. Even vegetarians and vegans were like, I don't want a salad.
I order salads a lot and just like put some warmer ingredients in them. Like I'll put
Yes.
chicken on it. So there's sorry vegans, sorry vegetarians.
But those are all the questions that I had overall.
Okay.
Was there anything that you felt you wanted to add to this that you wanted people to know?
It's just be happy, love life, eat as healthy as you can, and live life and prosper. I don't know.
Lovely. That's our motivation for the day. That's our quote for the day.
Be happy.
Be happy. Just be happy. Well, thank you to everyone who has been tuning in with us today on nudism.tv on NTR. Once again, we have our lovely guest Jenna in studio today. Is there anywhere they can look up your work?
Yeah, if you Google Jenna Citrus or jennacitrus.com, it's JennaCitrus.com. I'm on Spotify or YouTube or Facebook, all the platforms except Purple Port because I don't really know what that is.
Anywhere else you can find
Anywhere
them.
else. All the social medias.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll go jam out to some of your music right now.
Yay.
While I go eat our lunch and whatnot. But thank you again for everyone for tuning in, and see you next time on nudism.tv.
Yay.